Well, thank you very much. It's exciting to be here this morning. I appreciate everybody making it. I walked over to the convention center. It was absolutely beautiful out there. And to be able to actually make it here and not divert to one of the many nice areas is a good thing. So when I was asked to come and talk, Rich said, hey, why don't you come give your perspective and your predictions? I thought that would be pretty easy. Okay, I can do that. And then he said, well, the topic's unified communications. And I said, uh-oh, because everybody has a different definition of what unified communications is and are. And I thought to myself, okay, well, the first thing I better do is figure out a theme. And since this is Super Bowl week, we'll use kind of a football theme a little bit. And that's where the playbooks come. And the predictions come from really, as Rich said, having over $1 billion business that is truly global. We get to see unified communications in all aspects throughout the world. And the other thing is when I think of unified communications, and my definition for unified communications is really combining the way we communicate in a unified way. And that's very important because you think of all the ways from business communications that we communicate today, whether it be cell phones, laptops, everything. That is unified communications, and making it come together is what I'm here to talk about and give my predictions for the future. So key plays in the UC industry, as a CEO, probably the best metaphor I can give you is you are a coach. At the end of the day, you coach your teams, they go out and they execute. You put plays together, and they run those plays. But one of the things that you see, it's like in a football game, you're constantly adjusting the strategy based on what's going on in the market. And there is a lot of change going on in the market. One of the most important things that you have to do is you have to understand the past to understand the rate of change for the future. So you can get punch drunk on how fast things move, or you can get stuck in the past. And you have to find that right balance between the two to make sure that you, as a company, are providing the right services at the right time that customers really want. So, if we take a walk through the past, we all know this, a push-button phone, everybody's seen that. But do we realize that the first time the push-button phone, by popular mechanics, was introduced as a concept for the future was in 1942. 1942. It didn't actually make it into the mass market until 1963. Think of the years between the time that it was introduced and the time that it actually was used. Rate of change of technology. Just because it's capable of being done, it's not necessarily capable of being deployed in a mass method throughout the world. Another one. That foundation was really the root of our company, Mitel, over 40 years ago. The change from digital to a touch-tone phone. If you look at this diagram, this is the actual diagram out of the manual of a touch-tone phone. The most basic components had to be described. And when you look at that, one of the funny things that I always kind of look at is the fact that if you think about it, this is the first time that a jack was introduced. That they actually had to have the term of a jack plugging the phone into a jack. Again, this long transition. And then there was a burst of technology that really changed the landscape of the world. When we think about mobile, look at the date on this cartoon. 1931. 1931. And look at the capabilities of that wrist communicator as it was. No battery. Long talk time. Look at that. 1931. And this year, obviously, Apple will introduce that communicator. And there's other devices out there. The idea is we have the ability to conceive it long before we have the ability to deploy it. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be deployed. It's a matter of when. When and how. I like this one. The first handheld mobile phone. I won't ask the age, but it came out in 1984. Some of us had that. Believe it or not, I actually put that in my back pocket at 2 pounds, almost 2 pounds. A whopping 10 hours of charging time would give you 30 minutes of talk time. Revolutionary at the time. Before that was the little bag that we carried around. So there's been a lot of change. A lot of change in the market. And the rate of change. It was funny. My daughter, when she saw this chart, she said, "What is that?" She thought it was some kind of computer that would open up. And I said, "That, honey, was the phone of the past, and actually the start of the new future." You know, where we are today is we take communications pretty much for granted. You know, I live in Dallas, Texas. My CFO lives up in Ottawa, Canada. You know, as a CFO, he gets called probably 30 or 40 times a day. And that can be I say called, but that can be a text, that can be a phone call, that can be a video call, that can be any way of those communications that are unified. And you think about the journey of making that call, all the different technologies that it has to go through, which we just take for granted. He's in Canada, so that puts a tolling issue on. That takes different paths that the phone call is going to go. And, you know, as usual, the number's busy, because I think he doesn't want to talk to me. I think, you know, I think that there's many ways to get a hold of him, and I use them all. Obviously, this is one of them that I use quite frequently. Call me, because your phone's busy. But the reality is, we take for granted this works. In our industry, in our company, we deal with the complexity of making that very simple. And that's a key theme to the predictions of what's going to be very important in unified communications going forward. You know, when things get really, really complex, marketing people or industries like to make them very, very simple. And the reality is, you know, the newest and the latest thing is the cloud. It's a very easy way to incorporate a whole bunch of complexity. And we say, well, we'll just do that in the cloud. But what is the cloud? What is the cloud? If we had a diagram of what the cloud was, it would be mind-boggling. Of all the connections, when you think about video, mobile, fixed line, WebRTC, you know, all different formats that the communications are coming together. So what's really driving the change? Obviously the cloud, public and private. Public and private cloud. We think of it as the same because the reality is, in most cases, you're using the same equipment. It's just, is it your data center or are you buying services through a data center? Unified communications, increased collaboration, and that's the key. That the real benefit of unified communications is collaboration in any format that can take. And you've got factorial nodes of different ways that people want to communicate. And, you know, the market is constantly pushing in new ways, whether it be over-the-top communications, whether it be WebRTC, whether it be a phone call, whether it be a video conference. Many different ways. Video conference through the cloud. Many different ways the technology is coming together. And then mobility. Marrying the fact that many of the workers are mobile. And that has a whole other series of connotations and technologies that has to interact together when we look at it. Consumerization of enterprise IT. Probably the toughest thing, other than politics in a company, the toughest thing for an IT director to deal with. Politics are tough, let me tell you. But the consumerization of IT. Because everybody's bringing to work their own devices that have some app they found out in an app store somewhere that does that micro piece of thing that they want unique to them better than anything that you have in the company. And there's multiple devices, multiple devices. They can download them on their computer. They can download them on their iPad. They can download them on their phone. All seamlessly working for them. But maybe not in the best interest of the broader enterprise. And how do you marry all that communications capability with maintaining the security and the safety of your network? So it's that challenge of making sure that they can communicate, they can collaborate in the way that they want, but in a secure environment that doesn't compromise the entire enterprise. And then the customer interactions. People are so busy today. They are so busy today that they want the stuff to just work seamlessly. I don't want to be an IT expert to make all this work. And actually, if you're in IT, you don't want to be an IT expert to make all this stuff work. You want it just to work. So where's the UC industry? You know, some people have a big white fluffy cloud. I don't. I'm the guy behind the curtain who's making all these technologies work, who's seeing these people that are pushing the envelope of ways that we can collaborate and use these pipes in new and innovative ways. And I got to make it work with the legacy stuff, with the current stuff, and the next generation stuff. And I got to do that in a secure manner that's easy to use. So when I think of the UC industry, I think of a cloud that is probably more different than that white fluffy cloud that most people think about. Because I see all these technologies coming together, and I know what the customer wants. He wants me to take care of the complexity in the marketplace. You know, one of the things that always amazes me, because we're all technologists. We're running 100 miles an hour. There's no question about it. But this was the 2013 worldwide annual shipment. Well, this is a quarterly shipment on a run rate basis. Quarterly shipments of IP versus TDM worldwide. So TDM shipments versus IP shipments. We're thinking in this room, this is an IP world. Everything's IP. It's about what services we can put on top of IP. How we can use those broadband pipes more efficiently. I got news for you. Q3 2014, there wasn't a change. 55% of the systems being shipped globally today are TDM systems that are going to be around probably for 7 to 8 years. Because when you ship a new system, that's the life of the system before. So one of the challenges for companies in our industry is that model of, I think that cloud, I see the thunder and lightning coming down because I have to connect all these collaboration services somehow with that 55% base that's shipping every day around the world. And as you think about companies getting bigger and bigger and bigger, we have to live with the technology adoption life cycle curve and remember that as the world's getting smaller and more connected, what it's getting connected with is more diverse set of technologies. Legacy technologies with the bleeding edge technologies. And how do we make that work? How do we make that work? Because at the end of the day, what you really want is you want to use these UC collaboration capabilities to communicate with the people that are in the other parts of the world. And the other parts of the world may not be at the same place that we're very accustomed to here in the United States. And we see that every day in the world that I live in. So at Mitel, our playbook, and I think this is a playbook, this isn't just for Mitel, this is really kind of an industry playbook of what needs to happen. You got to standardize where it matters. At Mitel, what we decided is to standardize on the endpoints. Notice I didn't say sets, because an endpoint almost can be anything now. A soft phone, a desk phone, a mobile phone, an iPad, next thing. Did I communicate or watch? We'll have to, somehow, that will be an endpoint, and somehow our services will connect to that. So we look at how we standardize the interaction with those. And applications. We standardize applications so that the endpoints can work with a common set of applications. And then the last point is the call control, which is probably the most standardized of it all, the least variable, and the thing that most customers are most adverse to change out. What they'd love is to have that 55% of the world who has a TDM system just give me these other capabilities, but I just want to keep that in my core. So that's the complexity of what we're dealing with. And we leverage the cloud to deal with that complexity. How do we do that? Well, for the nomadic workers at a company, we might put them on some kind of UCaaS service and leverage them in the cloud, keep your legacy core, and then the company can have both capabilities, a hybrid capability. And that's going to be very important for our industry going forward, is making sure that there's, as the third bullet, a path. That's what we see our customers want, and the bigger the customer, the bigger the path has to be. Because you think of multiple locations, you think of multiple languages, you think about multiple privacy laws, country by country. At the end of the day, the end customer only cares about, why doesn't this work? Why can't I push a button and see all my affiliates worldwide? And he's on this technology, he's on this technology, he's on that technology, she's on this technology. I want you to make it work. I want you to make it work. So who will win? This is kind of the predictions part. Well, of course, Mitel will. No, what I mean by who will win is there's some very specific things that are tied to my predictions that I think at the end of the day, well, whoever wins will solve these and make these predictions come real. So these are my future predictions. Predictions are great, all except for the last one, which I'll tell you about in a minute. That's the Super Bowl scores. The future predictions are things that are hard to hold me to, but I think that as you hear what they're going to be, they should resonate well with you. So business class voice will remain a high water mark for the technology innovation. So as we think about all these technologies that are going to be mashed together, where you're communicating on an iPhone and you're calling someone on a desktop phone, having that crystal clear voice quality is going to be critical. It was interesting, I was having breakfast this morning, and we were talking just about that very thing, about how critical it is that when you're talking with the customer, that the phone's not, giving latency, or not underwater, all that kind of stuff. Because it's really, at the end of the day, it's kind of a sign of the quality of your company. It really is. Voice quality isn't going away. As a matter of fact, the bar is being raised. Voice quality is extremely important. The next one, the smartphone will simply be referred to as the phone. I don't know about you, I don't have a home phone anymore. My home phone is my mobile phone. It's my phone. And I have a pretty smart phone. It's got all my numbers in it. But the phone itself, if we say the mobile, will become very interactive with the other endpoints. And what I mean by that is if you can envision, you walk up to your desktop phone, or maybe you walk into your office and it immediately hands over if you want to do that. That can be done today through Bluetooth, just like your car. Or you can use the directory in your phone to drive your desktop phone. Those are the kind of things that are real, but it will be centered around the mobile phone for the nomadic workers. Today's industry giants will not be tomorrow's. That's kind of a bold prediction. But as you see the markets that we play in consolidating, and we're a consolidator ourselves, I guarantee you, if we look 5 years from now and we look back at who the leading players were, it will have changed. And the characteristics of the leaders, I think, will be covered in some of the other predictions that I have. But I can guarantee you that today's industry giants will not be tomorrow's. That's the rate of change that's going on in the marketplace. Companies with strong ecosystems replace standalones as preferred vendors. The reality is, it was very interesting if you looked at the IBM presentation before and you saw the diagram with all the various companies on it. That's the ecosystems I'm talking about. Nobody can do it all. Nobody can do it all. Because of that, you have to have ecosystems that work very seamlessly together. As you think about more communication devices coming into this unified communication mix, the reality is to be able to leverage those capabilities, you're going to need open architectures and open systems so that the systems work extremely well together. Now, as a consumer of the goods, that's a great thing for you. As a provider, that is a horrific problem to make all those things work because you've got the legacy, the current, and the future. But that's what we do. That's what we do. And that's what we're going to have to do in the future. The next one, industry consolidation will continue, and it will accelerate. Accelerate. At Mitel, we've added 4 companies in the last 18 months. And we'll continue to add companies. We'll continue to consolidate the market. And you're going to see, I think, more and more and more of that. If the economy was just a little bit healthier, I think you'd see it be extremely fast consolidation going on in the marketplace. Extremely fast. But the healthy companies, if you really look underneath the covers, they are buying. And they're buying 2 things. They're buying, as I call it, land. And land is customers. They're buying legacy customers that they're going to migrate through the journey to the next generation technologies. And that's Mitel's playbook. We've done that too. That's how we became number 1 in Europe, combining Mitel and Astra. And we got this massive installed base of legacy customers. Everyone says, why do you want the legacy customers? Because they're going to move. They're going to move to next generation technologies. And you'll see that. You'll see that change in the market where it's going to consolidate. Cloud will change everything eventually. Eventually. I often laugh that, we sell a lot of retail cloud, public cloud, and we sell a lot of private cloud. The reality is technology is the same for us. It doesn't kind of matter. But the cloud, the capability is extremely intriguing, and it's because of virtualization. It's because of utilization of data centers. It's all those things. And the key is that the communication and collaboration capabilities of the past can be brought forward, and then it's just a format of choice. And it goes back to path. We have a lot of customers who have a little bit of both. They have some of their offices in the cloud, but where they got a big facility, they still want to, as they call it, a premise solution. Well, a premise solution is nothing more than a dedicated server and a whole bunch of software. And a cloud solution is on a, it's in a data center, so it's a server. If it's virtualized, it's any server, any time. They're very similar. Very similar between what today's premise systems and the cloud systems are. Cloud will be very important. It's like I see in many analyst predictions. They're absolutely right in direction and a little aggressive in time. It takes time to get there. Number 4, proprietary systems will become the fax machines of our industry. You don't use fax machines anymore. Because of the rate of change that we're all enduring, the reality is proprietary systems, we can't live with that. And it's because of the ecosystems to make things work. Even when you think about, okay, I'm at XYZ shop today, that's what I am, that's how I'm going to be. If you really think around the edge of all the various components, somebody else is in there. Somebody else is in that ecosystem. And as you start to think more, not just locally, regionally, and globally, there's a ton of ecosystem in there. So proprietary systems aren't going to work. The other one, and this is probably one of the most, I think, important ones, is technology sophistication will drive innovation. Make no mistake about it. Technology simplification will drive the market. Very important concept. Very important concept. Because at the end of the day, how you get all this stuff to work together is wildly complex. But the customers don't care. They do not care. They want it to work. They want it to work seamlessly. And they don't care whether you've got a life size and a Polycom. They just want those 2 systems to work. Whether you got Mitel, Cisco, whether you got a buyout, they don't care. They want you to make it work seamlessly. Very important. Customer experience engagement will become the number one UC feature of the future. And I firmly believe that. Because some of the base technologies are really commoditizing. So how easy is it to provision? How easy is it to manage? It's not the technology. It's the ease of use. And how easy you're to do business with, which will really count, which will really make a big difference in the future. So at the same time in our company that we're working a lot on the technologies, we're working a lot more on the simplicity and ease of use. That's why users groups are very important. Our users group is growing basically 100% a year. We're putting a lot of effort into that because we need to understand what the user wants. And they have spoke very loudly to us. Customers want it simpler to use. They want it to just work. You figure it out. You just got to make the systems easier, more simpler, so we can train, so we can change, so we can provision much quicker. And then number one is the first one to create the seamless UC experience where it just works. Anytime, anywhere, with any combination of equipment wins. And because innovation continues to come into the market at a very rapid pace, and if you think back at about 55% of the systems today being shipped are TDM, that's all vendors. That's not Mitel. That's all vendors. This link or this path to the past technologies to the future technologies in a very easy and seamless way is what customers care about. So those are my 10 predictions for the future. I can tell you that we're working very hard on implementing those, making things very simple to use. And then I guess as I wrap up here, I do have one last thing that I was going to do. The Super Bowl prediction for any football fans out there. If you listened, I think one thing Rich didn't say is that I actually herald from the Pacific Northwest, from the state of Oregon, so you can guess where I'm going to be leaning. And I think the Super Bowl is going to be a good game, and my number one prediction is all the footballs will definitely have the right amount of air pressure in them, probably the most guarded thing. And then number two, this is going to be the score, 35-31. So thank you very much for your time this morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to give you my thoughts about the market and what I'm seeing out there.